welcome to Conversations with Kerrie. And today I'm starting a new series called Conversations with Mediums. And my first guest in that series is Rebecca Johnson. Welcome, Rebecca.
Thank you, Kerrie. How are you?
Good. Rebecca is a wife, mother, daughter, sister, friend, while also being the owner of Essentially Balanced, a business in Toowoomba that supports working mums to get out of their own way and live their best life. And it's lovely to have you here and have a chat, Rebecca. So just tell us a little bit about yourself.
So I think you covered a fair bit there. So I think we all wear different hats, you know, in life. So I'm a wife, I'm a mum, daughter, sister, friend, you know, work colleague, at Essentially Balanced. So I'm trying to help working mums and women in general. If the blokes want to jump on board, that's fine. That's fine. They're more than welcome. But I come from a space of being a woman, being a mum, and knowing sort of, you know, being able to identify all those feels around trying to juggle everyday life, and just trying to bring some balance back to everyone, and help them live their best life through doing Reiki and bars therapy, and so that's pretty much what I do.
Yeah, and because it is a challenging space. Like, how old are your kids, Rebecca?
So my eldest is 9, going on 29, and my 5-year-old, she's 5, going on 16. So, you know, as I think I've mentioned to you once before, you know, when we, you know, my full-time job, I'm given a booklet and go, here you go, this is what your job is, this is your job description, this is what we expect, you know, don't go outside of these boundaries. When you become a mum, you're literally handed this tiny human.
Yeah.
You're like, there you go. Okay. You have so much self-doubt and fear around, you know, this ever-changing life you've created for yourself. So,
and it is like, I can remember being in that space. Like, my kids are in their 20s, so I've got, you know,
different worries.
I can remember like working, you know, in the corporate world at that time when my kids were that age, and a guy I was working with, he's a lot older than me, and he sort of said, little kids, little problems, big kids, big problems.
Yeah.
It's so right. I've never forgotten that.
It's so true. My dad still tells me the same thing.
Yeah. And I do tend to think, you know, it doesn't get much easier being a parent.
Yeah.
It just changes, the dynamic changes as they grow. That's been my experience anyway. And anyway, so let's talk a little about your spiritual awakening and what triggered that for you, and just tell us a little bit of the story behind that.
So it was quite a few years ago now. I was chatting to a girlfriend of mine, Cassie, and she was going to do her level 1 in Reiki, and I was like, what is that? You know, and I'd always been looking for modalities. Like, I've always known since I was little that I've wanted to help people. I didn't want to be a doctor. I didn't want to be a nurse because, you know, I don't cope with blood and guts and all that sort of stuff. It's not my cup of tea. I don't think I'd be very good at that at all. But I've always just felt this sense that I'm destined to help people. I just had no idea how I was ever going to do that. You know, I'm 40 this year, and it's only been the last 5 years. I'm like, oh, well, I can do that. Like, you know, so I went and had a Reiki session myself, because my friend Cassie was like, go do it. It'll make you feel really good. And the lady that I went to, she was just so lovely. She was a massage therapist, but incorporated Reiki into her massages. And like, I just felt awesome when I left. And I started doing a bit more research on it, and, you know, because I was like, well, how the hell does this work? You know, like, I know we're all energetic beings and all that sort of stuff. And yeah, it just piqued my interest. So I started looking around, and I thought, okay, I'm going to go and do this and learn a bit more about it. And I thought if I went and did my level 1, I could do Reiki on myself. I wouldn't have to go and pay someone to do it. And yeah, I got more than I bargained for, I think, you know, just the, I don't know, the sense of self that you get when you do those things, and just the confidence that comes with it as well. You sort of tend to, you know, you do put all of these burdens on yourself, and, you know, you talk about circle of influence, and, you know, you can look at a picture and know circle of influence, you know, okay, I stress about all of this stuff, but really it's this is the only thing that's going to happen. So you're wasting all of your energy on shit that may never happen, essentially. Yeah, so that was probably about 4 or 5 years ago. Actually, no, it would have been longer because my eldest is 5. Time flies. Yeah, probably about 6 years ago that I went and did that. And yeah, I've just been trying to hone those talents ever since, I suppose. So I'm a bit like, you know, I wasn't blessed with the gift. I wasn't born with it, I suppose. It's something that, you know, I'm trying to still learn and still manage, and but just trust myself that it's there, and, you know, that anyone can do it.
Yeah, and that is the whole point of, as I said to you before we hopped on, like my intention behind this whole series of conversations with mediums is to bring everyday people like myself to the conversation.
Yeah.
And just make it more accessible for people on an everyday basis, and give people a little bit of a glimpse or insight into how mediums do operate with their relationship with spirit on an everyday level.
Yeah.
So what does your relationship with spirit do for you on a daily basis?
So I actually, so I've always been interested in spirit guides, and you know, I've always sensed that there's someone, there's a higher thing than we, you know, we're not alone, let me say. You know, as a kid, I always, you know, sensed those sort of things and sort of didn't really understand it, and never, just sort of dismissed it. And then as you sort of get a bit older, and you start thinking, oh, you know, you can make your own decisions. It's not someone else saying, oh, that doesn't exist, don't be silly, or, you know, just those little things. So you start to form your own opinions and start doing your own research. And I always just thought that, you know, people were born with it. You couldn't, it's not something you could learn. It's not a skill, you know, that you could just pick up a textbook and start learning. And I was very wrong. I was very naive in that space. And it was my Reiki master who I did my master's with, and she's saying, you know, to learn more or connect with your spirit guides, you know, meditation. There's there's so many different meditations out there, and I probably went through a couple of months worth of ones before I found one that I really resonated with, one that I was like, oh my God, this is working. So I don't know, I find I'm trusting more in that as well. You know, when you want clarity around something, you sort of, you know, take a step back and jump out of your own mind and sort of let them go, well, yes, you're on the right track, or no, you're not. Or yeah, it's, I don't see them. It's more of a feeling for me. And just when I ask them questions and I feel like a lightness, I'm like, oh yeah, okay, got it. I understand. Or you know, they'll show me something and I'll go, all right, I got the picture. You know, they throw it at you like, you know, 7 times in a row because you're not listening, or you're so focused on something
Well,
else.
that's pretty good that your guides are persistent in that way. Because mine would just tend to step back and just go, okay, we'll leave you to it.
Yeah. See how you go. Yeah. No, and I think probably because I've ignored them for so long, they're like, listen, no, we're here now. But yeah, it's quite funny. Yeah, you know, like I'll ask a question, or when I've started doing tarot readings as well. Yeah. So and that was purely just to try and hone my skills and see how good I really was. So I offered to do some freebies for some friends and family, and I got some really good feedback. And I think it was what I needed to go, well, hang on, you've been doing this for 5 or 6 years. Trust yourself. So yeah, now it's something that I offer in my business, you know, and it's exciting. Like you can just, you know, what comes through, what messages and things that like I've learned about my friends that I had, you know, we'd never touched on conversations about things that they'd been doing in their life before. And I'm like, hey, what's this? You know, and giving them the safe space to open up about stuff as well. So.
And I think that's a really big point to touch on is the fact that mediums, when we do step into giving a message to another person, we really do take that responsibility of holding that space, because we've got no idea what that message is going to promote within them.
Yes.
And I know for me and my work, it just is a whole range of what it can promote. It can promote from, you know, oh yeah, that's fine, walk away, nothing, to oh my God, I'm changing a whole belief system,
Yeah,
and releasing 23 years worth of grief.
yeah,
You know, so we do really hold space, and it is once people recognize that we're holding that space and there is no judgment and they feel safe, that often unlocks the gates. You know,
you don't know what you're prepared, you don't know what you've done, you're like, wow.
yeah. And certainly, like, because what I'm hearing in you and the intuition I'm feeling is the amount of trust that you've built in yourself over those last 5 years. You know, I'm just hearing it's like night and day for you. So I just really wanted to bring that to the table so people recognize that this is what mediumship and a connection to spirit does for us personally. Yeah. It does build the trust and the belief in ourselves, and brings us that confidence, and to know that when we make a decision and we make it from our intuition, that we do have the confidence to see it through and to build that. So just can you just talk to us a little more about that trust journey, because I feel like it's been a big one for you.
Massive. Yes, you're right. Yeah, trust your gut. Yeah, I don't know, like it's, you know, I try and sort of think back and put myself into, you know, especially my teenage years, and I think, you know, hormones have a lot to play. I'd really love to get into the preteen space, so sort of, you know, 9 to 12, and start, you know, like I'm only learning this in my mid-30s, you know, love who you are and be who you are and let your light shine. So I'd love to, I think back to when I was that age, and that was, you know, you I don't want to say put in a box, but, you know, you don't know confidence yet. Do you know what I mean? Like, I suppose it's probably a bit of false confidence, but, you know, kids can be so cruel too. So, you know, I had acne, and kids were just nasty little bastards. And, you know, you take all of that into, and you sort of, you know, form a bit of self-hate or whatever it is. And I'd love to go, you know, with essentially balanced, especially, you know, take that to schools and guidance counsellors, and, you know, and teach these kids at such a young age that, you know, you do you be who you are, love who you are, you know, blocking that. I always say to my 9-year-old, you know, block negativity, pretend you've got your lightsaber, and you know, knocking that shit away.
That's a good one.
Back yourself. You know, and I do believe that I've been pushed down this way to help my girls, you know, through their teenage years. Like, yes, it's helping me hugely, because now, you know, I've come from a space where I probably wouldn't speak my mind or, you know, have a difference of opinion. And now it's like, well, I'm allowed to do that. That's okay. You know, that's what makes the world go round. That's what's, you know, and how we learn. Like, I've got a really close group of friends that I love through line dancing, and we meet quite often, and we're all different ages, different backgrounds, and I just love listening to them and like giving this stuff to them and doing work with them, because I think, you know, everything happens for a reason. We meet people for a reason. They come into our life for whatever reason. Yeah, and it's, you know, they've helped me learn so much and trust in myself as well. You know, I think when you've got that awesome network of people, friends, family, you know, people you meet on a video chat, that really validate where you're coming from and what you're doing, and that it's, you know, you're on the right path. And yeah, I think I've been pushed this way to help my kids too.
And that is so common. I see it all the time, you know, and that we often think it's about helping other people, but really it's about helping ourselves. And I know that's been my journey, and I've seen it with lots of you know, mentoring clients over the years. They'll go off and do a course, you know, and then, or do some study, and it's really about applying it in their own family unit. And can I just do you mind if I offer you some intuition based on what you were all saying then? Is because I was feeling like you're on the money when it comes to being in that preteen space, and being, and part of the way to that is through the mums.
You know,
and it was certainly like, you know, just and learning it with your own kids and helping them, but it has a bigger filter and a bigger spread going out. And, you know, I see in your future kids workshops and stuff like that, so very exciting. And the world does need more, because you know, it's harder for them with all the social media and
absolutely
heaps more expectations to be perfect, and some of the stuff that they've got to encounter that we, you know, that we never did, or you know, my generation never did, you know.
We did. It's a different world now, you know, the world that we learned in, the world that we grew up in. And, you know, like, even, you know, look at my parents and think, you know, when they were parenting us, they were parenting for a world that they grew up in. And, you know, just there's so many changes. And you know, it's, you got to roll with the punches too. Like my 9-year-old, she's such a sensitive little being, and, you know, I'm constant, and I think, you know, I'm giving a lot of sometimes when you're trying to do that work when it's so close to home, sometimes it's really hard. You've got to take a massive jump back and not be the mum, you know. I'll just stop it, you know. And at 9 they don't know how to just stop it, you know. So yeah, it's sort of, you know, I take a massive leap back and go, okay, well, what would I tell somebody else's child, or what would I tell a friend, or, you know, what advice would I give them? And I find, I'll be honest, I find that this has made me probably a better mum too.
Oh, that's really, that's really good. Because it is hard to be objective and not reactive in that space, you know. So, and it is, and I can sense, like, you do have sensitive children, you know, like I can sense how sensitive they are. And I know that just through my own experience with my two, you know, they go through stages where, you know, my kids have they grew up always knowing that this is what mum does. Because they were so, you know, I was still pregnant with my daughter when I sort of, you know, was doing my first courses in training, you know, and they went through that stage of when they're teenagers, when it wasn't cool, you know, it wasn't cool at all because it's weird, and but then as they sort of got just a few years older, you know, and they realized that their friends have experiences, and you know, their friends were interested, then again that really changed. And so just on that, like when it comes to working energetically with your kids or introducing the topics and stuff like that with your kids, do you have any tips or anything like that that might help for people?
So my kids are really open. Like, I think because I've like Mackenzie, my eldest, she loves all this stuff. Like, she's, Mum, can you run my bars? Because she knows how good it makes her feel, right?
Yeah.
Kenzie's she's of a nighttime, getting her to bed is a nightmare. Why is the sky blue? I need a drink of water. I have a headache. Why, you know, all of those things that I could probably guarantee that every parent's been through. I run her bars and she just goes, oh, Mum, I think I'm going to go to bed now. Whatever, child. And the first time I ran her bars and was, you know, working with her energies and everything, and she got off the table and she goes, oh, Mummy, thank you so much. And I was like, oh, well, you're welcome. Like, you know, I've done Reiki for her before and never had that sort of response. And she went in, she got herself a glass of water, and she came out and she goes, I think I'm going to go to bed. I looked at my husband. I was like, okay. She went to bed. I said, you've got to turn your TV off, iPads off, all electronics off. She's like, yes, Mum. And normally that's a shit fight in itself.
Yeah.
And she went to bed. She didn't get up. She didn't come out. She gave us a kiss goodnight. We didn't see her till the next morning. And I was like, I wonder if that's, you know, like, just helped her release all of these beliefs that aren't hers or feelings that aren't hers, because she's a bit of an empath as well. So I think she struggles. She feels everything that everybody else feels, and that's why I've got to be really careful what I put out, because she just picks it up and runs with it. So, and trying to explain to a 9-year-old that that's not her feeling, not her worry, not her shit. You know, you can't. Some days I don't understand it. So, you know, I can't expect that she's going to do that. But all the next day, like, she got up, she got ready for school. We had no fights, no arguments. I put her lunchbox. She was like, thank you, Mum. Like, I was like, oh my God, who is this kid? You know, and for me, seeing that such a massive shift in her so quickly, I knew then, I'm like, I am on the right path with this. I just knew, you know, if I could see it in my own kid, then it was definitely it was something that I really wanted to pursue.
Yeah. So just to clarify for people, because I know when you talk bars, you're talking about access bars.
Yes.
Right? And the modality of it.
Yes.
So I just want you to just explain a little bit about access bars and what that is for people, if you would. Yeah.
So basically it's working on, there's 32 points in their head. So, and it is literally just touching and like activating them. And essentially what it does, and it's the easiest way and the quickest explanation I always use is, it's like defragging your computer. So, you know, when you're working on your computer, it starts to get a bit sluggish and slows down, and it's not performing at its best. So you take it to a technician, they go and wipe all the old data or, you know, stuff off of it, and it starts working again. It's a bit like the brain. So from, you know, when we're kids, it's the terrible twos. You know, kids are just fun-loving and footloose and fancy-free because they don't have any, oh no, you can't do that, or you can't, you know, all of these things that they're told from when they're 2 years old, and they start to believe, and they get cranky because like, no, that's not, you know, that's not what I believe, or it's not what I want to do, or it's not true for me. So by accessing the bars, what that does is essentially just flicks all of that stuff that no longer serves you, no longer, you know, resonates with you. You might have had an old belief that you know, you were never going to lose weight, or you were never going to fit in, or, and that's things that someone's told you, or things that you've remembered from your past. And it's really quite surprising what you remember. You know, I picked up on something that when I was 7 years old, and I thought I'd sort of dealt with, but turns out I had not. But it's just, it's fascinating. You just sort of get this sense of lightness, I suppose, when you're, you know, confidence boost, and Yeah, get rid of all the shit that no longer serves you, basically.
Yeah. And that, for me, that's always indicative of being in the spirit of who we are.
Yeah.
You know, that sense of lightness.
Yeah, and sense of
So,
self.
yeah.
Just, you know, being true to yourself and not taking on everybody else's belief systems of all different things in every aspect of life. So, yeah.
Yeah, well, this has been really insightful, Rebecca. You know, thanks for your time today, because it's been like, you know, I'm sure there's lots of people that always challenged in the parenting space with, you know, about their spirituality and things like mediumship and having sensitive children, and how do you deal with that. So I guess I'm sort of hearing that Reiki and access bars are sort of certainly one tool that people can use to affect that. And I know, you know, my kids over the years, I would take them to one of my favorite spiritual healers, and often, you know, sometimes my daughter, she would like, just even in the last few years, you know, Mum, can I have a healing? And, you know, I'd have to get her out on the bed and stuff. But yeah, I always find it a little hard to be objective.
Yes. Yeah.
You know,
sometimes it's easier when you don't know them.
It is. But essentially, it's, you know, it's always just even that calming sense of stillness, and just taking a moment is just can make all the difference.
And I think it's really important for everyone of all ages to just stop and be sometimes. I think I put a video up on my Facebook page this morning. I was having a really shitty day yesterday. And, you know, like sometimes, as, you know, when you're on the spiritual journey, you think, and it's probably not what I think, but you hear it all the time. Oh, well, you know, you do Reiki, you do this, and, you know, you're in tune with your spirit guides and everything. You should be calm and peaceful. And, you know, it's like, oh, bitch, please.
Yeah, exactly.
Just because I do all of this stuff doesn't mean that I'm not going to have a temper tantrum one day and just lose my shit completely. So, you know, I think that's a common misconception that people have of people who are on their spiritual journey. So, yeah.
Oh, it's a big misconception that, you know, it's all peace, love, and moonbeams, you know. It's often sometimes far from it, because and because I know, even for me, like I've been awake from 3 to 5 this morning, having, you know, a deep and meaningful with spirit about what, you know, why I struggle to allow joy in my life, you know. You know, so it's like, just, you know, dig that in.
You do, and it's the most random times it hits you too. You're just like, you know, I'm trying to do something here, just off you go.
Well, I think it's the thing of, for me, like, that time of the night that's the time I'm going to listen. And if it's that hard stuff that needs to come through, then you know, that's when I'm going to hear it, and otherwise I'm too busy doing
everything else. 3 o'clock is my wake up call too. If I'm having an idea or an epiphany, or, you know, a kick up the bum, it's usually 3 o'clock.
Well, that was my kick up the bum. and that's the thing, they just sort of, like, you know, you'll get that understanding, or you'll peel away the layer of that a little bit until next time, and then you get another kick up the bum.
I quite often, some mornings, if I've had those mornings, I was like, all right, I'll grab, like, I've got like 7 decks of tarot cards on my nightstand. And if I've had one of those mornings, I'm like, oh, right, so I'll just, you know, I'll randomly, just one that jumps out at me, and I'll pick and start reading through it. I'm like, okay, I got it. Like, you know, you just think, did I dream that? Or was it, you know, am I real? Should I be listening? And then, all of these things that happen throughout the day, you're like, okay, I got it. You have to acknowledge them and say, yes, I've heard you.
Yeah, it's the fun of it. But I certainly find like and the whole practice of working with oracle cards and stuff, it just lightens it for
Yeah.
us, you
Yeah.
know. So it is a real another great tool. So Rebecca, how can people get in touch with you?
Yeah, so I've got I've got a Facebook page, so Essentially Balanced. I'm in the process of setting up a website at the moment. One of my beautiful friends is helping. We're actually bartering. She's going to be doing my website. I'm going to be doing her Reiki and her bars. And she's actually got a horse that's in a fair bit of pain at the moment, so I'm going to be doing Reiki on her horse. So yeah,
Cool, that's exciting.
horses just honestly they respond to Reiki so well. Yeah, it's amazing to see them.
You might have to put a little bit of that on your Facebook page so we
Yes.
can check it out, because
Yes.
that's, yeah, like, you know, the animal stuff's really, really cool.
Yeah, we're working on all of that stuff at the moment. So I'm definitely branching out into different things and yeah, I suppose being a bit more holistic, but
Yeah.
yeah.
So if there was one message or thought that you wanted to leave people with today, Rebecca, what would you want to say?
I think my biggest thing at the moment, my mantra at the moment is for anyone is to trust yourself and back yourself. If I could go back to my preteen years and if there was any advice that I could give, it would be back yourself, trust yourself, and be you, be real, and yeah, know what your beliefs are. Be true to you. And you know, if you someone's telling you something and you don't feel it's one of your belief systems, just it's always nice to listen and acknowledge people. Everyone's different, but you don't have to take it on board.
That's such an important message, because that's even, you know, whether we're of the spiritual
Absolutely.
variety or not.
Yes.
You know, it's often you know, what other people want you to be, or who they think you need to be.
Yes.
And then that even occurs even in our spiritual learnings and our spiritual trainings, where we take on the beliefs of others because we read a book.
Yes.
Or whatever it might be, and you get down the track and that doesn't actually work for you, you know. So
there's Facebook and Google and all these sort of things, like you can, you really do. It's a lot of work, to filter out that stuff and to learn. It is a process to learn what's really you. But it's such an awesome process when you get to the end and you go, you know what, I really am cool. And it's okay to think that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it is totally. And at the end of the day, that's what our our relationship with spirit is all about.
Yes,
it is. Spirit wants for us to love ourselves and for us to see ourselves in the likeness of who we are in our spirit.
Yes.
You know.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
So that's really cool that that even in just your 5 years, you've sort of got to that space and you're sharing that with others and taking it down to the next generation, because we all need that. So thank you for being here today. Thank you for sharing with us.
No, my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. It's been lovely meeting you.